African Business Forum 2014 was held in London this year, and the President of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Museveni, was in the country to attend. And while he was here to attend this forum, we got the opportunity to speak to him. So here's the interview that we held with the President. Most countries in Africa these days have come up with a Vision 2020 about how they're going to develop their nations. What's our vision?
Our vision is 2040 to make Uganda into an upper middle class income country. Upper middle class means about $10,000 per person per year. GDP per capita.
The contributions from the diaspora currently contribute significantly to the economy of Uganda. In fact, it's 20% of the investments in Uganda come directly from remittances, but these remittances come mostly in the form of school fees. What would you suggest? What areas would you suggest the diaspora should get involved in Uganda, apart from just paying school fees for their children?
Well, first of all, it's so good that they are surviving and that they are sending some support to their families. That's good enough. I don't think they have their own money, which they can invest on a big scale. If they have, it may be of the magnitude of building a house or 2 or 3, which is all right, which they can also do. If you build a house and you rent it, you get money. If you build 2, 3, 4, that's some steady income for the future. So for their own good, I would encourage them to build houses for their own accommodation, but also for rent. However, beyond that, since they live in Europe and the USA, where there is a little bit of capital, they could attract others whom they work with through networking to bring those investments into our country. That could be their second role.
Uganda's tourism earnings are projected to hit the 5.3 trillion shillings. With these figures, is there a plan for us to have a national carrier now that we're doing so well in tourism?
Well, I myself am a bit cautious about having government airlines. What I want is an efficient airline, whether it is owned by the private sector or by the government. That's a secondary question. What is more crucial is efficiency and service delivery and cost savings, not extravagance. So I am neutral. I don't mind. We need an airline, of course. Should it be wholly government owned? I don't think that's important. What is important is to have an airline, Ugandan airline, that charges reasonable costs, because Kenya Airways has been overpricing their tickets. But I have talked to President Kenyatta about it. So what we want is an airline, whether private or public, but we need an airline.
So it's in the pipeline?
It's definitely in the pipeline.
Okay. Let's talk about the oil. Every time there's all this, oil is a curse, oil is a curse. How are we going to manage our oil? So it's a blessing rather than a curse.
Well, that is for people have no capacity. With us, there is no way oil can be a curse. Because we have already said the oil money will only go for electricity, for the railway, for some aspects of higher and technical education, and for scientific innovation. Those four. We shall never use the oil money for paying salaries and all that, no. That oil money must be for creating capacity which will help the present generations and the future ones.
All right. Would you have like a message for the people in the diaspora?
The people in the diaspora, you keep yourself safe. Don't go into drugs. I always tell you about AIDS. Mwekume. And continue sending money to your families. Invest in production. The Banyankole say, Buto ekorra bukuru. When you are young, you work hard so that in the old age, you live comfortably. So that is my message to the diaspora.
Thank you so very much, Mr. President, for speaking to us.
And I thank who?
Rosemary Nankabiro.
Nankabiro.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, please have your seats and let's get down to the business of our agenda this morning. The premise has been set for us, Your Excellencies. What we want to do is really to focus on bankable projects. In the audience this morning, you have people who are doing business on the continent, and also those, well, you may call them the uninitiated, people who still nurse questions about how safe it is to do business on the continent and where to look. And practical questions are being asked. How do I start? Who do I talk to? Where do I put my money? And what are the dividends on what will be the dividends on my investment? And so those are some of the areas that we'll be looking at this morning over the next 1 hour. But there's an elephant in the room. It's the issue of Ebola and the impact it's had so far in parts of West Africa. And we cannot start this conversation by not talking about that. President Museveni, based on your own experience containing Ebola in Uganda, immediately, are there any lessons, are there specific action points that need to be taken by African leaders, by West African leaders, to deal with this current situation?
Well, as President Mahama said, we are veterans of defeating Ebola. It has broken out 3 times. One time in Gulu. Gulu is northern Uganda. Another time in Budubujo, near the border with Congo. Another time in the center of the country, in Chivari district. It is deadly. It kills a big percentage of the people who get sick, although a percentage also survive Ebola. But the crucial points about Ebola is that although it is very infectious, fortunately it is not infectious by breathing. It's not like, it is not as infectious as flu, for instance. Flu is more dangerous. If it was not, it spreads faster because it goes through the air, through breathing. This one goes through only contact. Now, what you need to stop with the contact. And that's why I am not shaking any of your hand.
So that message is clear. We need to break the contact.
Just hold on.
He refused to shake all of us this morning.
Contact. There is my medical people have not clarified for me. They say contact when somebody has already started feeling the symptoms of sickness. That's what they say. It seems even if somebody is infected but has not started exhibiting the symptoms, he may not be infectious. So I said, now, that boundary, where is it? So that's why I said no shaking of hands.
Right.
So once you deal with the issue of contact, and that's where the leaders, the crucial point there is political leadership.
Right.
It's not just a medical problem, political leadership.
So political leadership is needed right now.
When you get something like that, what I normally do, I come out within 6 hours. The Director General of Medical Services will ring me even in the night, tell me there is a big problem. The following morning, I will be on the radio. Say, stop shaking of hands, stop burying people who have died in mysterious ways, report to the health centers, health authorities. So once you deal with the contact, the customs, which Mr. Mahama is talking about, this bathing dead bodies, and all that must stop. Once there is this problem, then the next group to protect are the medical workers themselves.
That's right. President Museveni, if you just bear with me, you've made very valid points, but I want us to move on.
Just hold on. Let me finish that before I forget.
In a minute, sir?
Just hold on. The medical workers, that's why he's making a point about the protective gear of the medical workers. Because if you don't do that, then you are in trouble. Thank you. Sorry to...
Thank you very much, sir. President Kagame.
But to answer the question of whether you fellows you should come fear coming to Africa because of Ebola, don't fear. Once we know how to control it, it is easy to control. It is actually the easiest to control. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Museveni. President Museveni, ahead of oil production in 2017, your country has seen a rush of foreign investment into the power and then transport and the hospitality sectors, and that is really fueling demand for new infrastructure. Again, we're talking about roads. But for you, which sectors do you see as a priority in Uganda's development that they should be addressing their minds to?
Well, before I talk about specific sectors, business has got two kings. One king is market, the buyer, the one who buys what you produce. Because if you produce and nobody buys, you will be bankrupt. So that's one king. And we are telling you that Africa has got that king. Consumption in Africa is going up. We are 1 billion people, the whole of Africa. Our part is more than 500 million. So these are consumers. The middle class in Uganda is now 37% of the population, and it is growing. So that's one side of business. If you are a business person, you need somebody to buy from you. Secondly, the other king is the entrepreneur, the one who produces. So the consumer is there already. Now we want the second king, the entrepreneur. Then the two are linked by facilitating factors like infrastructure. Roads are mainly done by the governments in our area, but there are also roads which can be done for toll roads.
So you need a private sector to get involved?
Yes. The railway, the power, that's to link the two kings, the consumer and the entrepreneur, the producer, the manufacturer or the service provider. Now, Africa, I think, will be 3 billion people in the next, not so far from now. It is the place to be in. Now, we had a problem of infrastructure, which we are dealing with now. Infrastructure is crucial for these people because with good infrastructure, you lower costs of doing business, and therefore you improve profitability. So from whichever angle you look at it, Africa is the place to be, because the consuming power is there, the infrastructure is being worked on, and thirdly, we have also negotiated markets with other big markets, market access with the United States, with China, with India, with even Turkey, even with Japan. The only one we have not negotiated with the European Union. The only one we have not negotiated with are the Russians. I don't know why we have not negotiated with them. So that's why Africa is the right place to be.
And back to my initial question, what is your development priority, President Museveni? Yes. So you've talked about roads and you've talked about partnerships. Where immediately do you want to see heavy investment going?
Where infrastructure is being done mainly by the government, but the private companies can also come in energy. The only problem I've seen with energy is that when the private companies come in, they use borrowed money. And that borrowed money has got high interest. And once they produce electricity, they try to recover money through high electricity prices in order to pay back the other loans. And yet I want cheap electricity for my factories to be competitive. So there is some sort of contradiction with the private sector. I'm beginning not to like them in the area of energy.
So you do want them to get involved?
No.
But the question then is, if you have an aversion for the sort of dividends or expectations they have in that sort of arrangement, then what's their motivation? What's their incentive?
To solve that issue of high electricity prices, because when we build a dam in Uganda, the price of the electricity is 3 cents per unit. A government dam.
Yes.
A hydropower dam built by the government. The price of electricity is 3 cents per unit. When it is built by the private people, because they are trying to pay the other expensive loans, which they got from banks, they go up to 11 cents per unit. And yet I want cheap electricity for my factories. But that's how I will be competitive in terms of production. So I was discussing with one clever European man. Well, there are many others, but I happened to meet that one. This man was saying that maybe you could use this aid money, because the Europeans say they are aiding us, although we are the ones who are aiding them, which is another topic. But this man was saying maybe aid money could be used to subsidize private electricity producers so that they charge low electricity prices. Because this is definitely going to make me give up private people in the electricity field. For the toll roads, I have no problem. Somebody can build a toll road and the rich people can use it and pay. As long as I've got another smaller road for my poor people who can't pay, I have no problem with the toll road being done by the private sector. But the electricity, we welcome private capital, but there's that issue of the price at the end, which should be looked
How do you
at.
propose I can get around that hurdle with them? How are you going to go about it? Because
one idea is that one of aid money being twinned up with the private investment to build the dam, but charge low price for electricity, so that they are supported by the aid money which the Western governments have been giving. That's one idea.
President Museveni, are you able to provide us with an update, as briefly as you can, on the oil refinery project that you're working on in Uganda, and what impact you're expecting this will have on investment in your country?
Yeah, but before I do that, what these gentlemen and ladies should know is that the African economies have been growing at high rates, 6%, 7%, some of them 9%, some of them even 10%, in spite of the bottlenecks, in spite of lack of electricity or inadequate electricity, in spite of poor road transport. These economies have been growing at very high rates. So you can imagine what will happen if we solve the bottlenecks as we are doing now. I thought I should mention that. Now, your little $100 million, which you are talking about,
For a start.
is just a joke, because the demands are so much that little $100 million of yours, it may help me to build some more, because now I have a problem of producing a lot of maize, which I export unprocessed. I have a lot of fruits, which are not processed. I have a lot of agro-processing. We just consume that little
Not even enough.
$100 million of yours. But coming to the other question of the refinery, yes, we have agreed with the oil companies, because the oil companies were trying to lecture me that we did not need an oil refinery. Now, I happened to visit Iran. Iran is a country which is not popular here. But me, I go to all those places. I come to England. From there, I go to other places also. Now, when I went to Iran, I asked the president there, I said, President, you produce oil. Do you have refineries here? He told me, and this was the other one, the one you didn't like most here in the West. the former one, the one who was there before. Ahmadinejad. He said, we have 9 oil refineries and we are building another 7. Now, here I was being lectured that I should not have even 1. So, but eventually, it was resolved. And they thought that I didn't know much about economics. Because the problem we have in Uganda is that we are landlocked. So when you bring oil from outside, my neighbors who are Muslims and Christians and so on, they knock off some money for transporting oil through their territory. So what was going to happen if we did not have an oil refinery would be that our crude would pay tax, transit tax, going out, and the refined products would pay transit tax coming in. So I said, look here. Even my late old mother knew some economics. To see that this is not correct. So we have now agreed on the oil refinery. We have also agreed on the crude that should go in the pipeline. So I think we are moving very well now. We are now very friendly with the oil companies. We have also agreed on the gas. We shall never flare our gas. Gas is not for flaring. Gas is for producing power. Gas is for helping just process our iron ore into steel. So we have agreed on all those points which had made oil a curse in some other situations. This oil of Uganda will not be a curse. It is a blessing.
I'm going to have to wrap up very shortly because we are very much pressed for time. But President Mahama, again, challenges of the Ghanaian economy. You are currently in talks with the International Monetary Fund. Let's cut to the chase. What do you want from the IMF? What are your expectations? What will be the implications? What should investors be thinking about as they observe these conversations, this discussion with the IMF proceed?
I think that the two have evolved. I mean, Ghana is not the kind of country it was when we first went to the IMF in the 80s. And I think the IMF is also not the same organization it used to be. It's President Kaunda who said the IMF was like a madman, and whether you had malaria or a broken leg, they gave you quinine. I guess that they've come a long way since then. And so we're looking to build a partnership that restores macroeconomic stability for us. That's key, because private investment, wants to see that the macroeconomic environment is predictable and stable. So that's the first thing we're looking to do. But we're also looking to transform the structure of our economy to make it more robust, so that we don't have to have the cyclical booms and busts depending on what happens to international commodities on the world market. The current instability we're going through is partly because of the collapse of cocoa prices and gold prices, and those are our key exports. And so we suffered a loss of revenue of about $1.5 billion, in a space of about 1.5 years. And for an economy like ours, that is significant revenue. And so creating more pillars, on which our economy can stand is one of the things we're looking at, both in terms of opening up new sectors like the oil and gas sector. We're giving out more exploration licenses, and those are sectors better left to the private sector because they can leverage the investment to put in there. And so we're doing that. Energy and power, both the state and private sector are creating an environment where we all can invest. And of course, one of the major game changers for us is bringing onshore our own natural gas from the Jubilee field and the other fields that we've discovered. We finished the processing plant, and we're going through the process of tying it in to the FPSO in the Jubilee field. That should bring some 120 million standard cubic feet of gas for power generation, can produce about some 500 megawatts of power. And it's critical for us because of the fluctuation in the operation of the West African gas pipeline. We had a lot of excitement when the pipeline was built, hoping that the abundance of Nigerian gas would flow through the pipeline to help all the 4 countries that were signed onto the pipeline to be able to generate. But the volumes have been very disappointing. And so bringing on our own gas would ensure some more energy security for us.
As shortly we'll be breaking into the plenary sessions, and some of your delegates and business leaders will be talking about the opportunities that exist. A minute for all of you in wrapping up, basically summaries. What do you want them to bear in mind as they go into that plenary session? And as you return to your countries, what do you want to go away from here with it? Again, I'll start with you, President Kagame.
Well, I very briefly say to the investors here in this room that invest in Rwanda, in East Africa, your money will be safe, you will have high returns, and the countries and our citizens will benefit and will develop together. So everything is there, already areas to invest, the framework that is provides conducive opportunities, and you are most welcome.
Well, I'll just say that the taste of the pudding is in the eating, and why don't you take a look? Why don't you come to Africa and take a look? I mean, there's so many opportunities opening up. And just to say that Africa is not the same continent that people perceived it to be. It's a continent that is taking its place in the world. I mean, there are more elections taking place, open, and vibrant media landscapes, respect for the rule of law, human rights. And I think that a lot of the growth that we're seeing in Africa is a result of the democratic dividend that is beginning to pay off in all the countries we have. It's a continent that is made of 54 countries, and so often when you ask me if I know your friend in Kenya, I probably wouldn't know him because it's thousands of kilometers away from Ghana. But certainly, there's something good happening in Africa, and I think that investors all over the world must come and take a look.
President Museveni, a minute.
Come and invest in agro-processing. If you don't want agro-processing in Uganda, that is, or in any other part of Africa, but I'm talking about Uganda. Agro-processing for my maize, I have a problem there. My fruits, my other foodstuffs. Then invest in minerals, huge mineral potential, iron ore, nickel, adding value to them, apart from oil and gas. Invest in infrastructure, like some of the roads and the power, if we can solve the problem of price of electricity. In services, everything is there. And the cost of production in Uganda are going down because we are dealing with the infrastructure. So profitability for companies will definitely go up. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mizengo Penda.
Well, for Tanzania, of course, as part of East Africa, there are a lot of things that we share. But certainly one area that I would seriously urge the investors to look at seriously and say the possibilities is in the agriculture. And to me, it's agri-processing business. And the reasons are obvious. You see, we are leading people who are still dependent on land and agriculture for their livelihood, but also development. So to me, that would be crucial and probably number one. But as my elder brothers have said, agriculture cannot flourish if you don't have power. So we need also power, and good enough we have gas opportunities, we have coal opportunities in Tanzania, geothermal opportunities in Tanzania. So it's an area that we can welcome anybody to come and see what we can do. And final, of course, is the infrastructure generally. Railways, roads, ports. We have quite a big portfolio in this particular area where we can also welcome colleagues to come and see the possibilities. Right. So, welcome to Tanzania, peaceful country, full of attractions in tourism as well.
And beautiful shorelines.
And beautiful shorelines.
I'm going to have to pick up from here. So basically, your job is cut out. Many thanks. You've been a wonderful audience. Our panel has been the Prime Minister of Tanzania, Mizengo Penda, His Excellency Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama of the Republic of Ghana, and His Excellency Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda. Many thanks for being a part of this conversation, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, with a big round of applause, make some noise for Judith
era wabanga bufumbo kyabanga kifo okudibira ku lujja n'abazadde kyabatwalanga ne ku ndaku bafune pulani afune yamutwala naziku n'abawala bakulanga ne ssenga n'amubulira embeera z'obufumbo ti wano tokola bwoti wano kola bwoti mwana wattu ebyo byaggwawo abakacooka notuzaddemu anti n'ebirerya osanyusiza nnyo omwattu tozwazizza akalagaane bwe katajja buliika kogwe kamutwalira abazadde bamulabeko ye manga ng'oseera mulala fumulo y'omusajja omulagatira yagaana ng'azaalakuza essanyu ly'omwana linzita yagaana ng'azaalakuza essanyu ly'omwana linzita bayozere bayotabule guno mukwano gw'omusajja gundi bubi bayozere bayotabule amazina jagaana ng'azaalakuza bayozere bayotabule guno mukwano gw'omwana gundi bubi bayozere bayotabule amazina jagaana ng'azaalakuza ekere janja nga sisoose kulanya mu maaso g'abeene ekikintu kya nnono zakuyimbira mu ddoboozi ly'eggono zaanawonna matoba irina nettiranga byakabbiro jerengesa omubala kali kutanda bwe kali kusuula mubenga biyesambaganye okyojjuseeyo onoolaba nabina ebigambo njagala obitwale kunkumula amatugo njagala obiwulire mwana wange mugenze kufumba naye tobeera omufumba kafu anewala amayuba yatema esogasoga oyaniriza omumanye ne gwotamanyi ekitiibwa ky'omukyala zibeera mpisa zokulembeza nga tonnakwata ekitiibwa ky'obufumbo kabeera mawuno nnyo era kimwebwa oyo abeera kigwanira onoobikwata ebyogenze kufumba ne bakadde bobaweesa ekitiibwa anti okuzala kwekuba okujagana jagala jagala jagane bayozere bayotabule guno mukwano gw'omusajja gundi bubi bayozere bayotabule amazina jagana ng'azaalakuza bayozere bayotabule guno mukwano gw'omwana gundi bubi bayozere bayotabule amazina jagana ng'azaalakuza omanyi omukwano anti liggwa lya tovu likusiiwa bwe likujijira kamwenyumwenyu kano kondabako kutama sanyu lya mwana ekisuulo ky'okusanyuka kyasizeze kisula nemmanya nti olwo kanaabeera ketalo ebyakakyokano kufuno yakwagala nakuleeta nembazadde n'amala kwanjula kabeera ketalo kaba kayisa nnyo kuba kujagana jagana ng'azaalakuza essanyu ly'omuzadde linzite siriseŋŋoma nzinemu amateera gwe gajja kumenya leka munnamunjoloba zine magonju oba ganjawuza walalalalala siriseŋŋola binzinemu amateera gwe gajja kumenya yongeza kukunyeyo olololo olololo essanyu linzita fayo fayo gwe bayozere bayotabule guno mukwano gw'omusajja gundi bubi bayozere bayotabule amazina jagana ng'azaalakuza bayozere bayotabule guno mukwano gw'omwana gundi bubi bayozere bayotabule amazina jagana ng'azaalakuza
What a beautiful morning, a beautiful sunlight. It's a beautiful day. This is Pretty B from Pine Avenue 5, G-Town, Northern Uganda. I want to send my greetings to all Ugandans from London, Europe, States, and all over the world. You're watching Uganda Vision Program. Keep it locked on Ben TV. Bye! Bye! kamye mandonga pekako mandonga tikanyero
Ringa mukama nkuze chijo kubane boy kusobya osigala ompa kuliranga favoringa mukama onti cheseza banja bakusaba naye nange nompa olwecho mukama zizeno tondere wesikwebaziza nolwecho sisenga kunonya nkulage tibuli kyefuna nsima mukama nkoze chejo nasaba kalimu nkoleko gwe wampa kuyingiza kiralu
nakwerabira naye gwe tewanyiga wanyongera bongezi ku mulimu wagatakamaka webalecho mukama nsizeno wetone wesikwebaziza nolwecho onzisinga nkunomya kulagenti buli kyemfuna nsima seba zambela mulalu sebo webale engutene wezijachenda penewe bachawenda kumi wakunira kenda sebo webale simbi wangabira chiralu kwano wangabira chiralu
chenda abalabe ne bwe bajja lwenda abakumi wanfunira kenda sebo webale
waponya mu budde bw'enkalamata wasumulula ensulo ne zikulukuta eyali atugubadde mwenyereketa omuyaye wobeera ndayira sirikuta sirikuta
webale omanye okulyalyawo n'okusanyawo ebizibu byange nkwesiga mulimbirivi nga nti ndibanga nga balabe bange tata kwebaza manyi kusanyira
Who is the King of Kings? Who is the Lord of Lords? Who is the Prince of Peace? He's the only one who set my soul.
Hope in the midst of my trouble.
Hey, He is the reason why I'm rejoicing.
I have hope in the midst of my suffering.
Hey, He is the reason why I'm rejoicing.
I have hope in the midst of my trouble.
Hey, He is the reason why I'm rejoicing.
I have hope in the midst of my suffering.
Hey, He is the reason why I'm rejoicing.
Ani yakulokola, ani yakulokola, ani yakulokola. Who is the King of Kings? Who is the Lord of Lords? Who is the Prince of Peace? Semazika ayagala genda kati nkole ki? Oh no baby, ayagala nkole ki nze? Nga yabireeta yaŋŋamba talya kawunga genjiye ekibumba. Oh baby, oh no baby.
Nyudala kula ne baluka Julia nuwanka wanka Majuwana stepanka panka Sibiri mwebyo ina inana Amazima kati yonkude kabanka Choyagala kulinyo taxi mupaka Yuwajoka Bela duwa maika Match me no Yomo kwano webityo When you want Sometimes okoma wonga all is done Yali ya kwagala yakoa yabuka Tachali woye agenda
Well, we've had it from the president. Save, go do business in Uganda and grow our country. Well, I'm Rosemary Nankabura for Uganda Vision. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Chakula Afya Kituyo, kuacha mocha duka yako kwa ajili ya ufumbuzi yako yote ya afya, kwa sababu wote wako marumu afya mahitaji, shinikizo la damu, high cholesterol, kupoteza uzito, ugonjwa wa kisukari na kwa erection. Sisi ndio wenye nguvu Blue Express na Nyekundu Express Capsule. Uhakika yapatia kila mwanaume muda kudumu election na moja saa ya kutumia product yetu. Kapiso hizi kuongeza furaha ya kijinjisha kwa wewe na mpenzi wako, kutoa roko ngumu erection, lerif kutoka kumwaga mapema. Wito sasa kwa utaratibu 0203899287 au 0793055740. Sisi tuko katika 11 Warren Street, London, W1T 5LG.